Every day you'll encounter things beyond your control: bad weather, a message that disappoints you, a careless comment that wounds you, a phone call delivering news of a setback at work, or simply a motorbike cutting you off when you're already exhausted from lack of sleep. These things show up uninvited. They don't care how hard you've tried or how ready you thought you were. And if you don't have a solid response system in place, these seemingly trivial things are more than enough to drag you into a negative state for the entire day. I'm not talking about suppressing your emotions. I'm talking about reclaiming the power to control your own reactions. No one is born good at this, but anyone can develop it if they understand one core principle. You can't control the world, but you can absolutely control how you respond to it. The question is not, is this worth getting angry about? But does this angry reaction serve any real benefit for me? The question is not, are they wrong? But am I allowing others to dictate my mood and my energy? Most people live reactively. Something happens, emotion flares up, reaction bursts out. Everything unfolds as an automatic reflex, no thought, no choice. The result is a life pulled by emotion rather than guided by will. But you don't have to live like that. You can create a pause between the stimulus and your reaction, just a small pause, enough to ask yourself, do I really need to get angry? Do I have to react the same way I always have? Will this reaction bring me closer to the person I want to become? This principle has existed for over 2,000 years in Stoic philosophy. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it." Today, with so many distractions around us, this truth is more essential than ever. When you clearly understand what lies within your control, you'll stop wasting energy on the impossible and start investing that energy into what can actually change. That is the only way to maintain your inner strength in a world that constantly tests your calm. Imagine being stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. The road is packed, the clock ticks, you know you'll be late. There are two typical reactions. One is anger, blaming yourself for not leaving earlier, cursing the traffic, becoming so tense that your entire body feels overheated. The other is realizing that you can't change the situation, but you can change how you face it. Adjust your mindset, turn on a valuable podcast, take deep breaths, and stay calm. Late is still late, but you've preserved your peace of mind and entered the meeting with clarity and presence rather than drained by rage. The difference doesn't lie in the circumstance, it lies in your ability to control your reaction. If you practice this often enough, you'll start to feel an inner power you didn't know you had. You don't need to retreat to a mountaintop or read hundreds of philosophy books to learn how to stay calm. You just need to ask yourself one simple question: is this within my control? If it is, act. If it isn't, let go. And channel that energy into what you can actually improve: your attitude, your behavior, your presence. A truly mature person is not someone who controls everything, but someone who remains composed in the face of what cannot be controlled. No one teaches us this in school. No one hands you a map, but you can absolutely rewrite your reaction mechanism starting today in the smallest situations of daily life. Each time you're about to lose your temper, remember you're throwing away your time, energy, and clarity just to respond to something you cannot change, and it's not worth it. Strength isn't the absence of emotion. Strength is knowing when to react, when to remain silent, and when to smile and walk away without letting petty things cloud your vision. If you live this way long enough, you'll realize your life is not defined by the events that happen to you, but by how you respond to them. And that power of choice always lies in your hands. It is the firmest foundation you can ever build under any circumstance, in the middle of any storm life throws your way. Thinking won't move you forward. Only action can do that. And if you feel like you're stuck, it's very likely not because you lack knowledge, but because you've let yourself become paralyzed in a maze of reasons, analysis, hesitation, and doubt. I've been there. You can spend hours making plans, running through every possible scenario, chasing perfection, and in the end, do absolutely nothing. It might feel like you're busy, but in reality, you haven't taken a single step forward. And that cycle kills countless dreams. You don't need another plan. You need to begin. Stoicism wasn't created to sit and meditate in isolation. It was designed for action in the real world. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write in his journal. He led an empire during wartime. Epictetus didn't just preach philosophy. He lived with unwavering discipline in every small decision of his life. Stoicism isn't a system to make you feel wise. It's a way of life that holds you accountable and calls you to act. It reminds you what you think will not define you, but what you do. Action doesn't need to be grand, but it needs to begin. One email sent, one step outside the door, one time saying no to an old habit, 1 hour offline from social media to focus on real work, one firm decision instead of endless consideration to the point of exhaustion. Action pulls you out of the whirlpool of analysis where everything seems difficult, overwhelming, and full of risk. Action generates momentum. Action fixes mistakes. Action gives you real world feedback, not imagined outcomes in your mind. I don't deny the importance of thinking, but if thought doesn't lead to action, it becomes a prison, a beautifully constructed one where you know a lot, understand broadly, but accomplish little. Worse yet, you start to lose faith in yourself. You wonder why you know what's right, but can't follow through. You think you're weak, but you're not weak. You simply lack a clear system for action, and you're being buried by too many things left unstarted. The feeling of not ready is a trap. It will always be there. Waiting until everything is perfect is the surest way to never start. Everything you're putting off, writing, launching a business, applying for a new job, changing your lifestyle, none of it needs perfection. It needs you to begin in your imperfect state. That is real courage. Anyone can act when conditions are ideal. Very few are brave enough to take action when things are uncertain, incomplete, and unclear. And those few are the ones who truly create change. If you're feeling confused, unsure where to begin, I suggest you ask yourself one simple question. If I could only do one small thing today to move closer to my goal, what would it be? Then do it immediately. Don't add more steps. Don't double check. Don't ask for advice. Do it and finish it. From that point, you'll feel a surge of energy rising from within, not because you've succeeded, but because you've returned to the posture of someone who actively steers their own life. When you take action, you regain confidence. When you act, you break the stillness of procrastination. When you move, you send a powerful message to yourself. I'm no longer someone who just talks. I take action. And that's when transformation begins. No need to wait for enough motivation. No need to wait for anyone's approval. No need to wait for the right feeling, because the right feeling never comes when you're standing still. The right feeling comes after action, not before it. I'm not encouraging blind action, but I am asking you to stop using thinking carefully as a justification for paralysis. There are times when you don't need another answer. You just need to take the first step, and the answer will reveal itself along the way. Like driving through fog, you don't need to see the entire 10 kilometers ahead. You only need to see enough of the next 10 meters to keep moving forward. And slowly, bit by bit, the whole road will come into view. That only happens for those who dare to move. No one is remembered for thoughts that were never acted upon. No one is respected for plans that forever stayed on paper. Everything you're postponing is actually an opportunity to prove who you are. Don't wait any longer, because every day you do nothing is a day you're training yourself in the habit of failure. And once that habit is ingrained, it becomes destiny. On the other hand, every small action is a stitch that repairs trust in yourself, restores your energy, and pulls you out of stuckness. Action is not a gift you give others. It's a gift you give yourself. It's a silent declaration that I will no longer stand by and watch my life be dictated by hesitation. I will no longer be the one who talks about change, but the one who lives in that process every single day, quietly, unassumingly, but consistently and powerfully. Because I know no path will ever open for the one who forever stands still. Most people see obstacles as a sign to stop. They encounter difficulty and think, maybe this isn't the right path. They face rejection and conclude, maybe I'm not good enough. They feel fear and they retreat. But what few people realize is this: what feels like resistance, suffocation, entanglement is exactly where you need to walk through, not avoid, but walk through. Because right at the heart of that obstacle lies the opportunity to become an entirely different version of yourself. Marcus Aurelius called it the simple law of reality. What stands in the way becomes the way. Whatever is blocking you, if you choose to face it, will be the very thing that shapes you. No great lesson is born from ease. No growth comes from a smooth path. It's discomfort, challenge, rejection, and repeated collisions that forge inner strength. The question is, do you have the courage to stand your ground and look directly at it? I know you've faced failures. I know you've been rejected, had plans fall through, and thought the world was working against you. But if you stop there, all you'll carry forward is the pain without the lesson. But if you're willing to go one step further, you'll start to see the structure hidden inside that obstacle. It forces you to change your approach. It pushes you to learn a new skill. It demands that you grow strong enough to keep going. And that transformation is the most valuable thing you'll receive. Imagine you've been rejected multiple times applying for jobs. The typical reaction is self-doubt, loss of motivation, giving up. But someone living by Stoic principles responds differently. They'll ask, what skill do I need to improve? What am I lacking? What can I learn from the feedback I received? By shifting the focus from why didn't they hire me to what must I upgrade to become more deserving, you turn the obstacle into a trigger for purposeful action. It's the same with a broken relationship. Instead of drowning in endless sadness and blaming the other person, you can ask, what have I learned about myself from this experience? What patterns did I repeat that led to the rupture? What do I need to change if I want to build a better relationship in the future? When you do that, the pain is no longer an ending point. It becomes the beginning of a version of you that's more mature, more precise, and more authentic. Here's what you need to remember. Every obstacle contains within it a mechanism for evolution, but you must choose to see it. No growth happens without collision. No resilience is formed without standing amidst chaos, and no courage is born if you always avoid what scares you. An obstacle is the ultimate test of whether you truly believe in your goal. If you give up when things get hard, maybe you just love the result, not the journey. I've learned this. The more obstacles you face, the more opportunity you have to create real value. If what you're doing is important, if your goal is big enough, then obstacles are inevitable. Don't see them as signs you've taken the wrong path. On the contrary, they might be the clearest sign that you're on the right one. No great person ever became who they are without being blocked, challenged, or torn down. The only difference is this: ordinary people stop, great people keep going, and each time they fall, they learn something new. You don't need to be brave all at once. You just need to take one more step while everything inside you is begging to quit. You don't have to overcome the entire obstacle at once. You just need to start dismantling it piece by piece, small action by small action. Strength comes from continuing to move forward even when you can't yet see the light at the end of the tunnel, because that consistency will lead you to a deeper layer of strength and capability you never knew you had. Don't just overcome the obstacle, use it as a launch pad. Let rejection make you sharper. Let failure teach you not to repeat old mistakes. Let fear push you to prepare better, focus harder, and let every challenge refine you like steel forged in fire. No strong person is born from ease. They are shaped in adversity, in darkness, in moments when everything nearly fell apart. but they didn't quit. If today you're facing a truly difficult obstacle, stop and ask, where is this forcing me to grow? What capability is life calling me to develop that I've long neglected? What is surfacing within me when I'm placed under pressure? Those questions will guide you to the root of transformation. And from there, you'll begin to see what others don't. The obstacle is not a wall, it's a door. But it only opens when you refuse to give up. Your mind does not live in the present. It prefers to wander into the past, where everything has already happened and you can no longer change it. Or it races into the future, where nothing has happened yet and you can't be certain of anything. And that very wandering is the reason you feel anxious, disconnected, and drained of energy, even while today is still unfolding right in front of you. I want you to look directly at this truth. There is only one place where you can truly have control, make an impact, and create change. This present moment. Everything you want. Peace, focus, joy, productivity, human connection can only happen in the present. Nothing in the past belongs to you anymore. Nothing in the future is ready for you yet. The present is the only door that's always open. Sadly, most people live as if this moment is merely a waiting room for something that is yet to come. A better life, a more suitable person, a clearer opportunity. And because of that, they miss everything already within reach. Have you ever eaten a meal and completely forgotten what you ate? Walk down a street without noticing the color of the sky, the sounds, or the feeling of the wind on your skin. Sat across from someone you love while your mind was somewhere else entirely. That's a clear sign you've lost touch with the present. And every time it happens, you're not just missing a moment, you're missing your life, because life doesn't unfold anywhere else but here, right now, in every breath, every emotion, every choice you make. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not dream of the future, do not dwell in the past. Focus your mind on the present." Not because the past and future don't matter, but because you cannot touch them. You can only learn from the past, you can only prepare for the future, but you can only live, truly live, in the present. And if you miss this, everything else you achieve becomes hollow, because nothing can make you happy if you're not present to feel it. I've met people who have everything in their hands. Wealth, status, relationships, but their minds are always elsewhere. They don't live in the homes they bought. They don't savor the dinners they ordered. They don't feel the embrace of the person they love because their minds are in tomorrow's meetings, next month's goals, or last year's mistakes. And so nothing ever feels complete. What about you? Are you truly living in today, or are you just existing in preparation for another day? I'm not telling you to abandon planning, but if your plans disconnect you from the present, they're costing you too much. I'm not asking you to forget the past, but if the past binds you in guilt or regret, you're imprisoning yourself in something that no longer exists. You need to return to the only place where choice is still available, this moment, now, not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect, right here. How do you live in the present? Start by returning to your body. Take a deep breath and feel the air entering your lungs. Listen to the sounds around you without analyzing. Just observe. When you eat, eat as if it's the first time. When you speak, look into the eyes of the person across from you. When you work, place your full attention on the task in front of you. These simple actions, when done fully, will bring you back to the now, where you feel more clarity, more focus, and more aliveness. No need for deep meditation, no need for complex techniques, just one decision. I will be present in my own life. I will not let my mind drag me away on autopilot. I will not let old emotions take the wheel. I will not let anxiety about the future blur the value of the present. When you train this into a habit, you'll realize much of what you thought was missing is actually already here. You don't need to chase further. You just need to come closer to yourself, to the moment that is unfolding. Living in the present is not an escape from responsibility. On the contrary, it is the highest form of awareness. You see clearly what is happening. You respond with greater precision. You are not letting the past distort your perception. You are not letting future fears cloud your mind. You act with full presence, and that makes everything you do more meaningful and more effective. You become someone not swept away by life, but someone who moves consciously with it, moment by moment. If you feel like things are spinning out of control, return to the present. If you're worried about the outcome, return to the action right in front of you. If you're regretting what's been lost, look at what you still hold. This moment may not be perfect, but it is real. And if you show up fully within it, you already hold the power to change the course of your day, perhaps even the course of your entire life. There's a paradox you need to understand clearly. The less discipline you have, the more you lose your freedom. On the contrary, the disciplined person is the one who has the most freedom. Not momentary freedom, but true freedom. Freedom from impulsiveness, from dependency, from the exhausting loop between knowing what you need to do and being unable to do it. If you don't set boundaries for yourself, the world will do it for you, and you'll always be pulled toward what's easy instead of choosing what's right. I used to think discipline was rigid, dry, and restrictive. But after years of observing the most effective, peaceful, and successful people, I realized none of them live by inspiration. They live by systems. They work even when they don't feel like it. They say no to what's easy in order to follow what has long-term value. And that's what gives them stability, trustworthiness, and a life with clear direction. That is true freedom. The ability to live by choice, not by emotion. You might think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want, but that kind of freedom often leads to inner chaos. If every day you sleep based on how you feel, eat based on how you feel, work when you're in the mood, and delay when you're not in control of your life. And over time, you'll stop trusting yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you erode your self-respect. Every time you choose the easy way, you miss the chance to build what lasts. Discipline starts with small decisions. Getting up on time, even after a restless night. Eating a healthy breakfast, even when you crave fast food. Sitting down to work as scheduled, even when your mind is foggy. Turning off social media when you know you're avoiding what needs to be done. These actions aren't glamorous. No one applauds you for them. But each of these small choices shapes who you are. They form your self-respect, your willpower, and your ability to steer your life in the direction you want. The hardest part isn't starting, it's repeating. Discipline doesn't come from one burst of effort. It comes from keeping your promises to yourself every day, no matter the circumstances. And here's the strange thing. The more you do what's right, the easier it gets. Because your body loves rhythm. Your mind loves order. You don't need infinite willpower. You just need to repeat the right actions long enough for them to become momentum. Then what's right becomes what's natural, and you won't have to force yourself into every decision anymore. I'm not saying you should live like a machine. I'm saying you need to live like someone who clearly knows what serves them in the long run and is mature enough to choose that even when emotions don't agree. Don't confuse freedom with indulgence. True freedom is your ability to do what's necessary at the right time without being dragged around by the lazy part of yourself. And that only happens when you have a clear structure, a self-discipline that comes not from pressure, but from ownership. If you feel like things are slipping out of control, return to the basic habits. Ask yourself, am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating properly? Am I sticking to the schedule I set for myself? Am I keeping the smallest promises I made for the day? Discipline is not punishment. It is a deep kindness to yourself. So you don't become a victim of your emotions, your environment, or your procrastination. You can't control the future, but you can control your daily habits. And those habits accumulated over time will decide who you are. No one judges you by a single good or bad day, but you will feel the deep difference after 30 days of keeping small commitments, after 90 days of living with discipline, after 1 year of not breaking promises to yourself. Confidence, clarity, and self-respect all come from that, not from the loud victories you often see on social media. If you're waiting for inspiration to change, you'll be waiting a long time. But if you start with one small action and stay committed to that action, you won't need inspiration anymore. You'll have momentum. And from there, you'll understand discipline doesn't take away your freedom. Discipline gives you what emotion can never guarantee: a life with order, with control, with a calm inner strength that no circumstance can shake. Emotions are not the enemy, but if you lack the strength to steer them, they will drive your life in directions you never chose. A sudden outburst of anger can destroy a valuable relationship. A rash decision made in a moment of disappointment can ruin a plan you spent years building. A fleeting wave of fear can cause you to give up on something that could have changed your entire life, not because you're weak, but because you haven't yet learned how to handle the surge of emotion when it rises unexpectedly. I'm not saying you have to suppress emotion. I'm saying you need enough strength to observe it, to feel it, without immediately acting on it. There is a fragile space between emotion and reaction. And in that space, you affirm that you are a conscious being, not a machine programmed to react. A person with emotional grit is not someone who never feels anger, sadness, or hurt. They are simply someone who knows how to stay grounded in the middle of the storm without being swept away. When emotion arises, your first instinct is to act on it. Yell, walk away, break things, blame yourself, escape reality. But true strength lies in your ability to create a pause. You acknowledge that the emotion is present, but you don't have to respond immediately. You don't deny it, but you also don't surrender to it. You let it pass like a storm, and you wait until the waters are calm again before making the right move. This isn't easy, but it builds you day by day. I've seen many people who are incredibly strong at work, rational and capable, yet easily break down when emotions run high. They can handle complex situations, yet say things they deeply regret just because they were angry for a few seconds. They can build an entire project only to abandon it because of one gloomy day. This isn't due to lack of ability. It's because they haven't trained their emotional grit. And in a world where anything can trigger your emotions at any time, this is a survival skill. You don't have to be rigid. You just need to be honest with your real emotions. When they arrive, acknowledge them, but don't let them drive. If you're sad, don't rush to blame someone else. If you're angry, don't rush to accuse. If you're afraid, don't rush to retreat. Ask, where is this coming from? What is it trying to tell me? Is this truly about the present, or is it a shadow of an old wound? When you know how to ask these questions, you create distance, and in that distance, you are no longer a victim. A person with emotional grit understands their own emotional system. They know what easily touches their wounds. They know when they are at their most vulnerable. They don't pretend to be emotionless. They simply don't let temporary feelings destroy long-term value. Like a sailor in a storm, they don't stop rowing because of the waves. They just slow down, keep their balance, and continue heading toward the shore. They understand that emotions are only the weather. The goal is the direction. You can build your own emotional grit, starting with small situations. When someone says something you don't like, don't respond right away. When a plan doesn't go your way, don't rush to complain. When you feel like giving up, wait 24 hours. Every time you pause before reacting, you're training your capacity to withstand emotional pressure. Every time you take a step back to gain perspective, you're building a foundation. And with each step, you shift from being someone pulled by emotions to someone who chooses a response aligned with their values. No one lives every moment in perfect awareness, but if you can recognize when you're beginning to lose control, you're already ahead of most. And if you can pause to regain that control, you're laying down a foundation that no circumstance can destroy. Remember, emotions are data, not commands. They signal that something is happening inside, but you are not obligated to obey. You are the one reading the data, not the one controlled by it. When you train emotional grit long enough, you'll find yourself less easily hurt, not because you've stopped feeling, but but because you've learned to steer your inner world with intention. You don't react because you were pushed. You respond because you chose to. And that freedom from automatic reaction, is one of the deepest forms of power a human being can possess. It ensures you don't lose yourself in the most chaotic moments of life. Death is not the enemy. It is a reminder that your time is not infinite, a reminder that every passing moment never comes back, a reminder that if you don't live fully now, you will not get another chance to relive it. Memento mori, remember that you will die, is not meant to frighten you, but to make you more awake, to stop you from postponing what truly matters, to help you see what is worth holding on to and what must be released. I know this subject makes many people uncomfortable, but avoiding it doesn't make it disappear. The truth is, you are dying a little every day, and the most painful thing is not that death arrives, but that you didn't truly live before it did. You trade your time chasing things you don't love. You stay silent about things you should say. You postpone important plans, assuming there's still time, but you don't know how much. And that truth, if you dare to face it, will change every decision you make from today on. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Not so that you live in fear, but so that you live in awareness. When you remember that you could die at any moment, you won't waste words on meaningless arguments. You won't let anger control you for too long. You won't delay kind acts just because they feel awkward. You'll live more deeply, more truthfully, more clearly. I've lived through periods thinking I still had plenty of time. I let strange relationships drag on unresolved. I postponed important projects thinking I'll do it tomorrow. I didn't say thank you when I should have, didn't apologize when I needed to, didn't give when I had the chance. And then I realized those opportunities don't return. I didn't lose them because I lacked time, but because I didn't treat time as finite. Once I understood that any moment could be the last, everything inside me shifted. When you live with the spirit of memento mori, you don't live in fear. On the contrary, you live with profound gratitude. A hug is no longer ordinary. A sunny afternoon is no longer taken for granted. A caring message is no longer something small. Every detail of life becomes vivid, clear, and emotionally rich. You no longer rush past them unconsciously. You pause, you are present, you take it in, and you are grateful, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is still here. Memento mori doesn't just remind you to be kind. It reminds you to choose wisely what deserves your time, which sadness is worth holding, which relationships should be released, which dreams must be pursued today. When you know you could leave this life at any moment, you stop living by other people's expectations. You begin to follow your inner calling. You choose the path that makes you feel truly alive, even if it costs more, stumbles more, or feels. If there's something you've been putting off, a project, a call, an apology, a first step, I want you to imagine if tomorrow were your last day, would you regret not doing it? If the answer is yes, then stop waiting. Time doesn't ask for your permission. It just moves. And when it pulls away from you, you can't negotiate. Don't wait until you lose someone to realize that love should be shown while you still can. Don't wait until you miss an opportunity to realize that the first step was never really that hard. I'm not asking you to live in haste. I'm inviting you to live deeply, deep in your conversations, deep in every meeting, deep in every moment alone. Live as if you understand. Not tomorrow, but this very moment is your chance to show the truth of who you are. And when you live that way long enough, you stop fearing death. Because you're truly living every day without living blank spaces between what you think, what you want, and what you do. No one escapes death, but you can avoid a slow death, the death of meaning, of presence, of gratitude. Memento mori is not just a philosophy, it is a compass. It doesn't bring despair, it brings clarity. So that when you open your eyes each morning, you know you've been granted something no one is guaranteed. One more day to live with purpose, love fully, and act with intention. And when night comes, you can close your eyes without regret for what was left undone. Not everyone who has more feels enough, and not everyone who has less feels lacking. The sense of fullness does not come from external possessions. It begins within, where you learn to look back, acknowledge, and feel grateful for the things that may seem most ordinary. When you practice gratitude every day, you don't just feel wealthier. You change the way you see the world. You stop comparing, stop resenting, and begin to live more deeply in what you already have. I used to think that the feeling of fulfillment would come when I achieved something, a milestone, an income goal, a certain recognition. But every time I reached one, the satisfaction lasted only a few days, sometimes only a few hours. Then came the emptiness, the question, what's next? That moment helped me understand, if you don't cultivate gratitude from within, nothing external will satisfy you for long. And if you can't be grateful for the small things, you'll never feel enough with the big ones. Gratitude is a skill. It doesn't come naturally, especially in a world that constantly tells you you're not enough. You open social media and see others richer, more beautiful, more successful. And if you don't have a firm anchor within, you'll be swept into a race with no finish line. Every time you say, I'll be happy when, you push joy out of the present moment. But in truth, no one hands you peace. You have to build it by looking at what you already have and saying, this right here is something to be deeply thankful for. A glass of water when you're thirsty, a morning without aches, a message from someone you love, a job that may not be perfect but helps you maintain your life, a friend who listens when you're not okay. All of these can easily be overlooked if you're not mindful, but if you pause and acknowledge them, you'll realize you're not lacking. You just haven't been seeing fully. And that act of stopping to see is the first step out of the scarcity mindset that never ends. I'm not saying you have to be content with everything. I'm saying gratitude is the foundation from which you act from fullness, not from panic. When you're grateful, you don't lose your drive. On the contrary, you act with more clarity. You know what's already working, what needs improvement, and you're not obsessed with lack. You move forward not out of fear of falling behind, but because you see the potential in what's already present. And that generates a very different kind of energy. Gratitude is not a fleeting emotion. It is a lifestyle, a habit that starts your day with the question, what am I grateful for today? And ends your day with the reflection, what made me feel lucky today? Whether it's a kind conversation, a quiet moment, or simply the fact that you are still here, still breathing, still with the chance to begin again. When you do this long enough, your mind gets retrained to focus on the light without denying the dark. Seneca once said, true happiness is enjoying the present without anxiety about the future. And enjoyment never happens without gratitude. Every time you complain about what you don't have, you blur the value of what is already here. But every time you're grateful, your mind stops chasing the next thing and returns to the only place life truly happens, here and now. If life feels heavy right now, try sitting down, taking a sheet of paper, and writing down 3 things you are grateful for in this moment. They don't need to be grand, they just need to be true. A meal you just had, a friend still by your side, an opportunity you are holding, something you once wished for that's now reality but you've forgotten to appreciate. Write it down, read it back, and let your heart slow down. When you do this every day, you'll find yourself no longer living in a state of escape. A person who lives in gratitude is someone who doesn't need much to feel enough. They can work hard, dream big, but they never lose connection with the present. They don't build happiness based on future success. They build it step by step in today's journey. And that's why they don't fall apart when things go wrong. They still have something to hold on to, an inner life nourished steadily by what may seem small, but carries deep strength. Because they know it's not just the big things that deserve to be cherished. Anything that still exists is already a gift. You will never truly be free if you're still dependent on how others see you. Inner freedom doesn't come from others agreeing with you. It comes from being clear about the person you are striving to become. and having the courage to live in alignment with that no matter what anyone says. If you constantly adjust your life to every judgment, every look, every indirect remark or vague comment, then you're no longer living for yourself. You're letting other people's minds rent space in your heart. I used to live that way. I placed too much weight on a glance, a shake of the head, a piece of criticism. I changed how I spoke, how I worked, even what I dreamed of, just to fit someone's standard who wasn't even living my life. Until I realized people will always have something to say. Do too little, they'll call you lazy. Do too much, they'll call you greedy. Stay quiet, they'll think you're arrogant. Speak more, they'll say you're too loud. The truth is, you can't please everyone. And you don't have to. The only thing you need to do is live honestly by your own set of values. But to do that, you must know exactly what values you're living by. You must pause and ask, what really matters to me? What are the non-negotiable principles I refuse to lose? What am I willing to protect, even if it costs comfort, approval, or popularity? When you have a clear value system, you no longer need an external compass. You can navigate on your own. Someone who lives by their values isn't stubborn. They're simply someone who understands the boundary between listening and losing themselves. They can accept feedback but not let it steer them off course. They are humble enough to adjust, yet strong enough not to bend for every external expectation. They're not swayed by trends. They're not defined by the silence or applause of the crowd. They know who they are, and they live that way without asking for permission. If you find yourself constantly checking what do they think, if you often feel anxious about being judged, you might be valuing yourself through others' eyes. But here's the paradox. You ask others to respect you while you're not respecting the truth inside yourself. You ask others to trust you while you're living as if you never dared to choose the path that feels right to you. And that internal contradiction is what makes you feel lost, even when everything on the outside looks fine. To live by personal values, you have to accept this. Some people won't understand you. Some will judge, distort, or doubt you. Some will walk away. But the price of pleasing everyone is losing yourself. And you can't live a meaningful life if you're no longer you. People may not agree with you, but they will have to respect your clarity. That steadiness is something no one can buy, no one can give. It's something only you can forge. Every time you choose to live in alignment with your values, even when it's hard, you are building a solid foundation for yourself. You're training yourself to pause before every decision and ask, is this truly right for me? Not everything that's trendy is reasonable. Not everything praised by the crowd is worth chasing. If you don't choose your values, the world will choose them for you, and that rarely leads you to the right place. Look at the people you truly admire. They're not perfect, but they're consistent. They don't follow trends, they create direction. They don't compromise on their principles just to be liked. And that's exactly why they're respected. Real respect doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from living clearly, steadily, and firmly in what you believe is right, even if you're standing there alone. If today you're feeling anxious about a judgment, a look, a negative comment, ask yourself, does this person truly understand me? Am I living in alignment with what I believe? Am I staying silent just because I'm afraid of being misunderstood? These questions will pull you back to the only thing you can control, your own integrity. When you live like that long enough, other people's approval becomes secondary, and the integrity in your heart becomes your true source of strength. Change doesn't ask for your permission before it arrives. It doesn't knock politely or ask if you're ready. It simply comes in a phone call, a letter, a seemingly trivial moment that turns your plans upside down. And if you don't learn how to move with change, you'll constantly be fighting reality, exhausted, drained, and eventually stuck. Not because the change is too big, but because you're too attached to how things were supposed to unfold. I know you've had plans that once seemed rock solid. Maybe it was a stable job, a long-term relationship, a career path you'd pursued for years. Then something happened, and what you once believed to be permanent suddenly vanished. You panicked, you resisted, you tried to restore what was, but the more you clung, the more it wore you down. That's instinct, but it's not an effective direction, because change, no matter what form it takes, is always an inseparable part of life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." That's not surrender. It's a completely different approach. Instead of resisting, you cooperate. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, how can I grow from this? When you shift your perspective on change, you're no longer being tossed around by the current. You begin to steer not to fight the flow, but to move in a deeper, more adaptive, more intelligent direction. True maturity arrives when you stop expecting life to be stable. Instead, you learn how to stabilize yourself from within. So when everything around you changes, jobs, people, circumstances, you're still left with one thing, the ability to adapt without losing your essence. And that's what makes someone truly grounded. They don't panic when things shift. They observe, adjust, and move forward. Not hastily, not clinging, not mistaking the old for their identity. You don't have to love every change, but you need to accept that change is inevitable. Don't wait until you're forced to change through crisis. Start by noticing the subtle signals. When a job no longer excites you, when a lifestyle no longer fits, when an environment no longer helps you grow. If you ignore those signs, change will arrive like a shock. But if you stay awake, you'll realize it always sends its invitation ahead of time. You just didn't want to open the letter. I don't deny that change brings loss. There are people you'll have to part from, old versions of yourself you'll have to leave behind, dreams that once burned bright but no longer fit. The pain is real. The grief is real. But so is this. You can't hold on to everything and still move towards something new. Some things must be released, not because they weren't valuable, but because their role is complete. And you need space for the new to enter. Accepting change doesn't mean you lack principles. On the contrary, it requires deep inner strength. You must know what never changes within you, core values, integrity, character, the rest, form, method, timing can always be updated. A person who never changes is a person who never grows. But someone who changes while staying true to their essence is someone with real inner power. If you're in the middle of a transition, if everything around you feels disorienting, I want you to remember this. You don't need to understand everything to take the next step. You just need to trust that even if things aren't what they used to be, you still have the ability to learn, adjust, adapt, and rebuild something even better. Not all at once, but bit by bit, with flexibility, with courage, and with the belief that change doesn't come to weaken you. It comes to draw out the stronger version of you from within. Change is the only constant, and if you can develop softness in the way you receive it, you'll no longer break every time life shifts. You'll stand in the wind, not to be blown away, but not so rigid that you snap. You'll begin to see the current of life isn't here to fight you. It's inviting you to step out of your comfort zone and explore depths you would never touch if you stayed in the same place. None of us truly know the story the person in front of us is going through. You may see a calm face, but not the pain hidden behind their smile. You may witness someone's anger, but not the wounds that have built up in them for years. Every person you meet is fighting a silent battle you cannot see. And for that reason, compassion is not just a virtue, it's a choice to understand instead of judge, to listen instead of react, to connect instead of cut off. I know that sometimes you feel this world is too cold, everyone's busy, everyone's guarded, relationships fracture easily, conversations become brief, people are quick to react to hurt, but few are patient enough to understand where it comes from. And in such a context, compassion becomes rare, but also the one thing that makes the biggest difference. Because when you practice unconditional kindness, you're sending a signal that says, I see you, not just your behavior, but the deeper human being inside you. I'm not saying compassion is weakness. On the contrary, it demands great inner strength. You must be strong to not retaliate. You must be grounded to listen patiently. You must have a solid foundation of values to avoid being pulled into someone else's reactions. True kindness doesn't come from a need for recognition. It comes from a principle. You choose not to hurt others just because you can. You choose to build even when you have the power to destroy. You choose to stay calm even when you have every reason to be angry. Empathy is not about agreeing with everything. It's the ability to pause your own perspective and try stepping into someone else's inner world. When you empathize, you don't require someone to be deserving of your attention. You listen because you understand. Every action has a reason behind it, and many times resistance, defensiveness, or even negativity stem from fear, pain, or a sense of being lost. When you grasp that, you become less easily provoked. You respond with understanding, not personal hurt. You can start with small things, look deeper at the rushed barista, nod in gratitude instead of staying silent, pause to ask a friend, "Are you really okay today?" and truly listen. Send an encouraging message to someone you know is going through a hard time. You don't need grand gestures. You just need sincerity. Every kind act you put into the world is an act of healing, not just for others, but for yourself. I used to think kindness was easily exploited, and sometimes it is. But what I've learned over the years is this: compassion doesn't need to be returned to have value. It is valuable because you chose to live by a higher standard. No one controls the outcome, but you control your attitude. And if you can keep your heart from turning bitter despite being hurt, that's a kind of strength nothing can break. True kindness doesn't come from softness. It comes from the understanding that everyone is trying. Each person reacts the way they were conditioned by their childhood, their environment, their wounds. When you understand that, you no longer see someone as the enemy. You just see them as a version of a person struggling to survive. And you get to choose either add to the chaos or be the one who stays gentle in the midst of it. You cannot heal the whole world, but you can keep gentleness in your tone, patience in your listening, and kindness in every interaction. These things may go unnoticed, but they leave a trace in others' hearts, in your own mind, and in how you feel about yourself when the day ends. A life worth living doesn't require praise. It only needs those quiet moments when you know, today I didn't pass up the chance to do what was right. When everything around you is loud and chaotic, there's only one place you can return to for clarity: within yourself. And that return doesn't happen by chance. It requires a ritual, a habit, a commitment to check in with yourself every day, not to judge, but to understand, not to blame, but to recalibrate. That is the essence of self-reflection. You pause, you engage in dialogue with yourself, and you courageously look at the things others can't see, sometimes even the things you don't want to see. No one can do this for you, and no one truly understands you like you do. But understanding yourself is not a feeling, it's a skill. It takes time, it demands ruthless honesty, it requires a space where you're not performing for anyone, not decorating your image, just you and the truth. The truth about what you've done, why you did it, and who you're becoming each day. I want you to revisit your day. What intention did you start with? How did you react when things didn't go your way? What words did you use with yourself when you made a mistake? Did you nurture positive energy or let yourself drift into negativity? Each of these questions is a doorway that brings you back to the deeper core of who you are, a place where you're not controlled by circumstance, but consciously creating your responses. No one is perfect, but no one grows if they keep repeating yesterday without reflection. You can't improve if you don't know where you stand. And you won't know where you stand without moments in your day to pause, listen, and adjust. Don't wait until the failure is too big to look back. Don't wait until the hurt is too deep to ask, when did I start losing my way? Daily self-reflection doesn't just save you from big mistakes, it helps you live intentionally, even in the smallest things. You can start by writing one line each night. Did I live according to my values today? If the answer is yes, reinforce it. If not, dig into why and choose one corrective action for tomorrow. You don't have to fix everything at once. Just be honest. Honesty is where all progress begins. And if you keep this commitment daily, you will build an inner strength that nothing can shake. Not because you're always right, but because you're always willing to adjust. Self-reflection is not self-criticism. Don't use it as a whip. Use it as a mirror. A mirror doesn't make you better or worse. It just shows you what is. And in that reflection lies your choice to continue, to adjust, or to change. That quiet moment each evening with yourself might seem small, but its power stretches through the entire next day. It helps you live with direction. It reminds you that you're not drifting in reaction to emotions or events. You are living with intent. In a world that encourages fast action, quick responses, and snap judgments, the person who pauses to reflect is someone walking a different rhythm, the rhythm of true maturity. Because each day isn't about proving yourself to the world, it's about clarifying yourself to yourself. You don't need anyone to validate how good you are if you already know where you're heading and what you're moving toward each day. I've learned one thing. True success doesn't come from the big things you do once, but from the small things you do consistently every day. And nothing is smaller, yet more powerful than pausing to ask, how did I live today? No one forces you to do this, but if you want to live with depth, with focus, without regret, this is where you begin. And it is also where you continue every day without interruption.